The Arab League has also demanded that the US abandon its plans in Israel after an emergency meeting in Cairo. It says the US move not only violates international law, but could also spark violence across the region. Halim Shebaya is a political analyst and a Middle East researcher, and he joins me now from Beirut with more on the Arab League meeting. Thanks so much for joining us, Halim. Now, the Arab League has condemned the action by President Donald Trump, but will it actually result in any decision or action plan? And does the Arab League still have any teeth?
Yes, it's a good question because in the Arab street, if you ask anybody about the Arab League, I think it'll be very hard to find anybody who is convinced that the Arab League can come up with something worthwhile and significant and effective for the Palestinian people and for the Palestinian cause. As we well know, the Arab League is made up of nation states that are really in a lot of rivalries. You have conflicts in Syria and Yemen. You have a lot of focus on Iran. And so now one of the good things, having said this issue that the Arab League, there's not a lot of hope and optimism that the Arab League can do anything on the ground. I think the good thing and the issue, the main point to think about at this point is the one that Palestinian scholar Rashid Khalidi made in an op-ed he wrote, which is that the Arab leaders, so whatever Donald Trump has heard from Arab leaders about Jerusalem, about Israel and Palestine, basically the reactions that we have seen is that there's a consensus in the Arab street that there's a full support for the Palestinian cause, for the Palestinian people, and on the issue of Jerusalem. Obviously, when we say Jerusalem, it's the East Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine. So the Arab League met basically because I think they wanted to appease their streets. They saw that there was a consensus on Jerusalem. There was a consensus on denouncing Trump. If you looked at the Twitter trends in all countries, from Saudi Arabia to Bahrain, to Yemen, to Qatar, to Lebanon, to Palestine, to Syria, the leading hashtag was always in all these countries, regardless of their politics, was related to Jerusalem. So on the one hand, the Arab League will not do much perhaps, although hopefully there will be renewed attention in the Arab media on the question of Palestine, and hopefully leading to something in the United Nations, which would be symbolic. But as we well know, symbols are important, just like it was important for the Israelis to have Donald Trump declare that Jerusalem is their capital. I think it's very important to have a very strong symbolic move in the United Nations in support of the Palestinian people and their right in Jerusalem as their capital as well.
And Halim, what is the relationship between countries like Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan with Israel?
This is, as we know, I will base my answer on what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said. And he actually was saying it on the same day or the day before the declaration of Donald Trump in a conference organized by Jerusalem Post. He was talking with a lot of pride about how Israel has managed to have a good rapprochement with Arab nations in the region. We all know that we don't have a peace treaty yet with Saudi Arabia and between Saudi Arabia especially and Israel, but we do know from a lot of reports that there is a rapprochement that has been done. Now, whether the move of Donald Trump will actually cause the nations that have been considering a rapprochement with Israel on account of their shared enmity with Iran, so under the dictum of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So the question is, will the new move of Donald Trump cause these nations that were seeking that rapprochement with Israel to reconsider and to say, no, we will stop any talk of a rapprochement, any talk of an alliance, any talk of any sort of cooperation between Israel and our nation until there's a more advancement for the Palestinian people.
Okay. And Halim, just very, very briefly, what do you make of the protests that you're seeing there in the city that you are in Lebanon and also all around the world? Do you think they're going to intensify?
I mean, protests are important. it's very important for people to go on the streets. It was really heartwarming to see a lot of protests in Western capitals and in all countries. When it comes to Beirut, it's also important to have protests, but I have an issue with the protests turning violent, because I don't think the Palestinian cause will be aided by images coming out from Arab streets of violence, because this will perpetuate the stereotype that Israel likes and a lot of the Western media likes about the violent Arabs who go to the street and they're just violent and irrational. I think the protests should be very civil, should be non-violent, and they should focus on the Palestinian cause and the rights of the Palestinian people. And in Lebanon, of course, it's fine for the protests also to call for more rights for Palestinian refugees. But I think violence does not serve the Palestinian cause at this point in time.
Okay, thank you so much for that analysis, Halim. That was Halim Shebaya, political analyst and Middle East researcher who was in Beirut and was looking at more reaction about the Arab League meeting that took place yesterday.